I'm still involved in the legal resources and the technology aspect. I'm chairing MLS this year. So I just like to stay involved. That way, my agents know what's going on in the industry. It keeps us ahead of everything.
You're listening to Everybody Loves Naples, an unfiltered and educational podcast about living in Southwest Florida. We're your hosts. My name is Natalie Perez-Benatoa.
My name is Lance Martinicchio. From the best restaurants and things to do to our local real estate market, we're sitting down with local business owners and community leaders to provide a deeper understanding of what makes Naples, Naples.
Now let's get the show on the road. Welcome back to Everybody Loves Naples. We are very excited for our guest today.
You might be.
Yeah, he might be. And if you're a Compass agent in the Southeast region, you definitely know this fella's name, Adam Vellano. Welcome to our podcast.
Welcome. Thank you.
He welcomes himself.
Thanks for
I feel like we're coming full circle. What was it? Two or 3 years ago, we met you at a hockey game.
Yes.
With actually your first guest,
Giovanni.
See,
he has
pretty
great
funny.
memory.
We went, we met Robbie, and then we started talking to you, and then we started talking about you were just getting in the business, and then we said you need to come over and work with us.
That's
I was recruiting that night.
Yeah. No, and I'll never forget because it left an impression on me.
There's nothing like a hockey suite full of realtors.
Yeah. Everyone's shooting their shot.
For free booze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun night. But yes, Adam is definitely the reason that I came to Compass.
I appreciate that. I don't know if that's totally true, but
No, it is. It's absolutely true.
Well.
And you've been kind of a guiding light for me, a mentor in a lot of ways, but also just a wealth of knowledge in our area for clearly real estate and contracts and ethics. And he's on the NABORD, Naples Area Board of Realtors committee of all kinds, right? I mean, you have a huge position there.
I mean, I've pulled back a little bit, but I'm still involved in like the legal resources and the technology aspect. I'm chairing MLS this year. So I just like to stay involved. That way, my agents know what's going on in the industry. It keeps us ahead of everything.
Yes. So your title at Compass, I knew you as a sales manager, but you recently got...
Yeah, I'm managing director of South Florida. So I oversee Miami, Broward, Palm Beach, and Naples, or Southwest Florida up to like Punta Gorda.
And for those listening, you oversee the agents.
I oversee, yeah. Well, in Naples, I run the office. In those markets, I oversee the team, or the managers, and then the team of. I mean, we have the most unbelievable managers, so it's not a hard job. It's just collaborating with them, making sure if they need help or their agents need help, we get it to them. So.
Well, you make it look easy because, for the record, you're one of the most patient, level-headed people that I know. And it makes sense that you've been friends with Lance forever. You're also level-headed, patient.
Yeah.
Depends.
So, Adam, I guess tell us a little bit how you ended up in Naples. Where did you start out at? And, where
So my family, I was in college, I was playing baseball. I got hurt. I went home, back up to upstate New York, and my grandfather and his wife had opened some businesses, jewelry businesses in Florida. They said, why don't you come down and help us? They kind of needed help. Went down there, learned that business.
What part of Florida was that?
It was Palm Beach. We actually had stores in multiple locations, but I was centered in a town called Manalapan, which is right outside of Palm Beach. It's where the Ritz used to be in Palm Beach.
Okay.
We actually had a store in the Ritz. It's not the Ritz anymore. It's like the O or something. Got a call from a customer. I knew that wasn't going to be it. I got a call from a customer that was a very good customer, asked me or told me she was going to come down in the summer and buy a condo. And I had talked a little bit about it. And I said, you know what, this is the opportunity. Went out, got my real estate license, and ended up, that was my first deal. I sold her a condo in Palm Beach.
What year was that?
2002.
Okay.
And I was hooked. Hooked. Like, I saw the potential. I loved it. I really just dug in, and just fell in love with it. Within a year, I convinced our landlord to let us subdivide one of the jewelry locations, open an office, and then open another office in Juno Beach, which is up toward like right under Jupiter. So we had 2 offices. We were doing a lot of new construction. Market was going great. I was working with a lot of developers, and then got involved in some international stuff, and then everything crashed, right? So got totally wiped out. Just totally gutted, was doing a lot of short sales and foreclosures. Ended up meeting somebody that introduced me to Zev at the time that owned Boca Executive. Got to know him. He's like, "What's going on?" And I told him, my story. And he's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, I did not know. And he's like, "Why don't you go to the West Coast and open an office for me?" We were generating leads over here. Came over here, opened an office.
And that was in what year?
2010, I think, 10 or 11. And then we were at Naples Bay Resort originally. And then a few years, started building a team. Didn't know. That's why I got involved at the board, because I came to this town and didn't know a soul. And I was like, how do I meet people? Got heavily involved at the board. A few years later, ended up meeting Lance. That's a whole nother story.
Have to have it.
Yeah.
I feel
That-
like there's
That's a
lot
whole
of
nother
loaded
story.
stuff.
I called him randomly. He was helping out a family friend, we'll put it that way, rent a place. And so I called him up. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" He told me the story. Sort of just connected, became friends.
Called me every month
Yeah.
for like a year.
I just hounded
Checking
him.
in.
Yeah. And
Hey,
then
come see what we're doing. Come see what we're doing.
and then eventually I ended up taking him back over to Boca, right?
Yeah.
And introduced him to everybody, and he was came on, and
Wait, you came on
I
to
came
his
on too.
team?
yeah, well, it was a brokerage. It
BX,
was like
right?
an office. Yeah.
BEX Realty.
Were we Boca when you
No, it
came?
was BEX.
Okay,
It's
so
already rebranded.
so Boca actually got bought out by private equity. So the guy that owned it did pretty well, like sold to private equity. Private equity came in. We did a whole rebrand.
Okay.
Like it was a pretty big
Right.
deal. Did a whole rebrand, and then that's when Lance came in, and
I
then
really put Adam on the map here in Naples.
yeah, you could say that.
Sounds like a beast, though.
But and then fast forward, what 3.5 years ago or 3 years ago,
3 years ago.
it was funny because I had been recruited to come to Compass before, and BX. It was a really close company. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but
It was like,
the culture was amazing. The agents that were there, we were like 240 agents. It was really like a family. Like I was there for, God, 10 years. I think 10 years. And then
10 years at the time of.
yeah, and I had multiple offers, but Lance ended up becoming friends with the CEO of BX, really good friends with him, and played golf a bunch of times. And he would always lure me back in, and he was a really smart guy. He was
Adam didn't want to leave me.
yeah, and then I didn't, but he was a good mentor. I really enjoyed working for him. And then eventually, Compass acquired the brokerage side of it. And he had asked me to stay on and stay with BX. And I thought about it, and then totally, honestly, just had severe FOMO and was like, I didn't want to leave all my agents. I am not a behind the desk kind of person. Like, that's not.
Right. That's my question. Were they recruiting you as a broker, an agent, or a manager?
At Compass?
Yeah.
No, it was going to be for a manager job,
Okay.
but which was appealing to me.
Sure.
But what I would have done if I stayed at BX, because they were going national with their leads and stuff like that, was becoming a broker in multiple states and doing stuff like that. And I did a couple states, and I was like, I'm not going to be a professional test taker. And like my skill set is relationships. Like, that's what I do well. Like, and solving problems and working with agents. Like, I'm not the behind the desk, stare at a computer. Like, my ADD kicks in, and like I go crazy. So I was a little bit late to the party, like, and finally
Joining.
The Compass party.
yeah. So they finally, like a few weeks before we ended up moving over, they made me an offer, and we worked it out, and I came over, and it was the best move I've ever made. And I love working there. I love the people. I love what they give me the freedom to do. And it's just, I don't know. I think to me, it's the best brokerage in the country right now. I think what we do for our agents and the technology and the support is like ridiculous. The technology is unbelievable. But like my favorite thing is the collaboration between agents and the referral network. The amount of business we see going back and forth, and like, I mean, I know Lance spends a lot of time in Jersey. I mean, it's probably every time he flies up there, he's either with a Compass agent or meets somebody on the plane and ends up doing a deal
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, so the Compass brand, I guess I really leaned into the whole Compass network when I realized that they were in every
Yeah.
state. And it was just, they loved collaborating with Compass agents.
Yeah.
So,
That was a huge appeal for me too.
yeah.
Was that at the time I was recording YouTube videos and I was hearing from a lot of agents. A lot of them were new,
Yeah.
granted, Googling how to be successful or
Right.
whatever. But I was like, wow, I'm connecting with all these agents. And over time, if I can also have agent relationships, get them with Compass, we're all in this,
Yeah.
you know, amazing referral network using the same tools and crushing it. I was like, wow, that's a revenue of business. And now my
Well,
2 or 3 year goal is to have 50% referral business, which some of the agents in our office have exceeded that percentage.
yeah. And I've definitely been trending that way.
Really?
I've noticed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even, it's funny. I always try to think, how can I get in front of the people before they come to Florida?
Right.
How, I need to get, and Compass was how I got in front of them beforehand by connecting with all the agents,
Right.
whether it be New Jersey, Philadelphia, Chicago. That's how you get in front of the people,
Right.
is through the agents.
Yeah, and I think in Florida it makes sense because nobody's from here, right? So they're coming from all these feeder markets. The thing I didn't anticipate was how welcoming all the agents were and willing to connect. Like, I'm wearing. Lance is laughing at me because we're on only everybody loves Naples, but this was a hat that an agent sent me. We did a road show. This is Heather Domi up in New York sent me this hat. She came down with. She's in New York. John Patrick's in D.C. Tamara Casey's in Chicago, and Julie Grace is in Greenwich, Connecticut. And they literally came down, went around to all these offices, put on a panel discussion with Steve Scholl, who Lance is probably one of the more uncoachable people I know, and he would tell you Steve is an amazing coach, like old school, mostly talks about CRM, but I mean the amount of time, money, and effort they spent coming to the offices to build relationships, and the last stop was Naples, and it's just you don't see that other places. I think it adds so much value. And it's just connectivity. Like I like the fact, and I think to Lance's point, like he's one of the agents that have really leaned into it. And when he goes to New Jersey, he always stops in at the Compass office. I mean, you did a happy hour up there with a New Jersey agent. You did a couple other events in New York, but and that's one of the cool things about it is it's as much or as little as you want.
Sure.
So the more effort you put in, or the more you go out of your way to create the relationships, the better it is for you.
Right.
And there's so many agents that it just works and it makes sense.
Yeah, we're gonna have a Jersey agent on our podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
She's in the queue. We won't spoil alert, but keep your ears peeled.
She's going to be a good one.
It's gonna be a trip. Yeah. But it's because of that we're able to connect. I mean, Lance's network of agents is incredible. I need to connect with more people, especially out in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. But it is a great resource, and I think Compass has provided me more tools than I ever even thought were available, the tech side of things. And then something like this. I mean, we approach you with this podcast idea. I mean,
love it.
Adam's a mentor for me, and I know a good friend of Lance's, and we both chat with him probably every day. And we can
A couple times a day.
Yeah, a couple times a day. And the fact that, number one, he thought it was a great idea. He supported it.
I mean, it's funny because I think what makes this podcast so unique is, you guys are different sort of demographics, right? Different generations, or if you will. But it surprised me a little bit how well you guys did together. Like I knew it was going to be good, but then when I started seeing like the early clips and the early reels, I was blown away. And the feedback that I've gotten from people, I know you both have gotten it too, is just off the charts. And it's one of the best because it's
Best
very,
podcast in Southwest Florida.
yeah. I mean, I feel like,
Joe Rogan experience.
I mean, the Kelsey brothers, and then maybe Joe Rogan, and then maybe you, and then maybe Theo Vaughn. I'm not sure. It's somewhere in that order, but
Toss up.
I mean, it's been amazing to see what you're going to do, or what you've done so far, and I'm so excited to see what you do with it. I mean, we have fun talking about it, like who we were talking about the other day, like who can we get on,
Yeah.
guests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good forum for both of you, and it's going to be exciting to see it grow. And
Yeah.
I
And
think-
we're hoping that we can connect with Compass agents around the country too, because
I mean,
if they have people for Naples, whether or not we connect with them as an agent level, but
Yeah.
if they have customers that are wondering between Naples and Sarasota and Boca, at least they have this little piece of a local podcast to get an inside look. And I think it's really comforting for everyone to feel like they have a piece of the conversation.
I think, we're in this world where every agent's trying to figure out what to do, and everybody's so like, you need content.
Content.
And,
yes.
it's like a lot of the content is become stale or just like regurgitated over and over again. And this is something that is really exciting. It's new. It adds value. It was a couple weeks ago, you had released one of them, and I was on my way back from Miami, and I listened to it, and the time flew by. It was like sitting with you guys, listening to you talk, and it was like,
Hey.
boom. I mean, and that was a short one. I think it was only like 30 minutes, but
Well, I don't think it should be more than that. It's got to be.
Yeah, Lance is very strict with his timeline and his protocol, and it's
yeah, he
interesting.
doesn't like to commit to too many things.
Yeah,
He has
yeah.
commitment issues. So
Yeah.
the fact that you're managed to get him to do this is actually remarkable. But
Yeah, I'm managing Lance. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
No, it's been awesome, and that means a lot. And I think
yeah.
the content side of things, and for any agent listening, might be thinking they want to start something or record a video. Like Lance and I have had this conversation so many times off of air. We're like, we don't want to do property tour videos every single post, if not like ever. I mean,
I think the
sharing
thing
it for the seller is obviously a bonus, but once
think-
you have the
yeah.
following of the personality and these people are glued in, it's like that's the kind of friends and business that I want.
I think the thing that what most people don't realize, and I'm going to say this, is that it's easy to watch a 30-minute podcast and be like, oh, that looks so easy. But the amount of work that you both do to prepare, storyboard things out, talk about things, be creative, like the amount of times you have meetings about it, like it pays off. But it's not something you just walk out and do. Like
No.
you did research, you looked at different studios. Like it was a whole process, and it was not a week, right? It was at least a few months of preparing, maybe
2 months.
Yeah, 2 months, but it shows, right? Because everything is how you guys wanted it. You got the right editors. You figured out how to
We're
go
testing
through
out different studio spaces.
Yeah, I mean, but
Other
it's
Compass agents have inspired us. Shane and Jesse, we always have to shout out to them
Yeah,
because they came to the
absolutely.
Naples office, put on their presentation that
Yeah.
you set up,
yeah.
and asked them to come to.
That's just another example of collaboration,
That's
right?
it.
Like, and that having them come down to our office and present spawned this idea.
We're gonna actually play them in golf, right? Don't we have to do a
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were gonna
challenge us?
cold plunge challenge. Jesse loves his cold.
I'll do a
Oh,
cold
cold
plunge
plunge
challenge. I don't know if I could beat him though, but I'll
He
Golf
does.
challenge.
He's pretty good at it. I think he's like 4
Yeah.
minutes or something.
He's really good at that, but he can't pronounce my last name to say
Nobody
it right.
can.
yeah.
That's fine.
I look at it and say Benita.
Yeah, I say Benita too. I think of Benita Springs every
Yeah,
time.
no,
Great.
so do I.
Great. Natalie
Benita.
Properties Benita.
Yeah.
Thought of a million slogans.
All right.
But
So before we get into the real estate market, because I do want to get, your thoughts and where you think it's headed.
yeah, Lance needs to learn something today.
Yeah.
As
Teach
if we
me how to
don't
do a
know.
CMA. So obviously you're in this area. You've been here since 2010, so 14 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like you really want to go anywhere else. You've been on
No,
other
I
coast
mean,
of the Florida. You've been
yeah.
on the other coast of Florida.
Yep.
So other than, your job, work, what makes you stay here?
I mean, my kids grew up here, so I mean, they were young when they moved here, but they both went to,
Yeah, so they
middle
really made
school.
a life for
Yeah,
themselves.
I mean, so they grew up here, so to them, this is home. I just like the pace of life. I get across, I go to the East Coast a lot now, and when I get off the alley, it's like your stress level goes through the roof. The traffic is ridiculous. I mean, you never know how long it's going to take you to get to. And look, Naples is getting bad with traffic too,
Yeah.
right? There's times, especially like after work, where you're driving and you're like, holy cow.
Mhm.
But I think the people, like, here's a good story. Like, I remember when I first came here, and this is changing since COVID, but I remember showing property on the East Coast, like Palm Beach and stuff, or you get these New Yorkers, right? And I'm from upstate New York, so I'm not knocking them. But you would literally pull up in front of a house, and they'd be like, "Yeah, I'm not going in there." And you'd be like, "What? Well, I made an appointment. Like, we got to go in and see it." They're like, "No, I'm not wasting my time. Keep driving." And you'd be like embarrassed, and you'd like try to figure it out, but you do it, and then you come to
Yeah.
Naples, and you'd like the Midwest people would like walk through a house for an
Oh,
hour
yeah.
and like not want to tell you, like, hurt anybody's feelings, and it was like,
Oh, wow, it's really nice.
it's really nice. And then you'd hear him talking in the back. Oh, I really didn't like that
Yeah,
house.
yeah, yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, well, you could have really just told me." Like,
Right.
so, and it was just like two different worlds, right? And it was learning that Midwest value, learning, how to deal with like a different clientele was interesting. And I think that's really carried over. Although I will say since COVID, we've seen a little bit of shift. Like
Yes.
Well, it's a lot northeast.
a lot more Northeast, a lot more like East Coasters, like
Right.
Miamians and stuff like that. So, Naples is going through some like I would call them like growing pains.
Yes. I
Right?
think for the most part, though, we still, and this is my hope for Naples, is that Midwest feel. Like
Yeah.
my father grew up in Miami, my mom grew up in Iowa. My parents did not want to raise us in Miami. They wanted to come to Naples, so they did. And my mom, like most people here, were from the Midwest. And it's one of those things where if I'm walking the dog or if I'm on a jog, people actually make eye contact with you and say, like, good morning.
Right.
And that I hope never goes away. And I think that's one of the things maybe the Midwest
Yeah,
really
I
rubs
think
off on. And also people are happy here.
Sometimes I don't want to wave to every person when I'm driving down my street, though.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That I
get. That I get.
Everyone
But
wants
if
to
you're
wave to you.
outside,
Yeah.
within arm's length of somebody, it's nice to kind of do one of
no,
these. I mean, when I did that in LA, people would be like,
The first thing
Like,
you learn in Naples is the old Irish goodbye.
oh yeah,
Because it'll
every
take you an
time.
hour to leave anywhere. So you just kind of, Lance taught it to me. He
Yeah.
really perfected it.
Yeah.
You'd be somewhere with him, and then Lance was
Yeah.
gone.
Oh yeah, I say
But
bye to one person,
yeah,
and then
but
I count that for everybody.
I use it all the time, and it's become more acceptable. Like people are just like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so much easier.
Right.
The
It-
goodbyes could take
Someone
forever.
says goodbye to me now if they're out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anything,
gotta
I'll
go
just be
over-
like,
And I'm a
Bye,
hugger too, so I'm like hugging everybody
Yeah.
and talking, and I'm like, it's just,
I
it
just
takes
like the big
forever.
wave. See
Yeah.
you later. Right in camera.
Awkward.
I
Awkward wave.
think Naples will. I think the thing that makes Naples though is most people. I say this, it's changing a little bit. Don't have really many places to go, right? So
It's so true.
you know what I mean. So like nobody's really in a rush except us that are working, but
Yeah.
most of those people are like service. We're all service people, right?
Yeah.
Like even in real estate, we're
Mhm.
basically a service person. We're servicing the masses in some way. So I think that's kind of interesting, but
Yeah.
we'll see how that shifts. I think we're seeing more job growth, but
Yeah, how do you think the job growth and the real estate market kind of relate to one another? And kind of what Lance was saying earlier, like what is the market doing right now? Clearly we know, but let's tell our audience if you don't
I
mind.
think we're in a really interesting. I think we came at, like, obviously COVID created, like, put Naples on the map, right? Like we blew up like more than we ever anticipated.
Yeah.
in 2020 and 2021. I mean, you got to remember, we never shut down in Naples. Like even Palm Beach and Miami shut down.
Oh yeah.
Like my wife works for, in the for Southern Distribution. So she works with a lot of hotels and restaurants. And like the JW down in Marco, we know the people that run the food and beverage there. And like you would see during COVID weekends, everybody from Miami come over because
I remember that.
because Miami was shut
That's
down.
right.
Oh yeah.
So like it was crazy there.
Right.
And those people all of a sudden realized we existed and now keep coming. I think what you saw was this.
That was just the town next door, let
Right,
alone the entire
right.
country.
So you saw this huge explosion. You saw, and I talk about, like when I talk about, I'm a pretty big stat guy. I talk about
what?
stat guy.
Okay.
Like I like
Stat.
data and stats. But I think we borrowed a lot of sales from the future, right? I call it the Peloton effect. Like Peloton during COVID was famous for like everybody wanted a Peloton, right?
Gyms were closed and I
Gyms were closed. Everybody needed one. Peloton decided we're going to go out. We're going to build more factories, make a whole bunch more Pelotons. What they quickly realized was it wasn't that so many more people wanted Pelotons. It was that people that were going to buy one in 2022, 2023, 2024 bought one in 2020 and 21 because they needed it at that moment.
Yeah.
But then as gyms reopened and stuff like that, that kind of died off and they found themselves in a little bit, in my opinion, I'm not a financial analyst, but I've read about it. Like, and we did the same thing. We borrowed sales from the future. People were either like, I want to get out of north, New York, California.
Couldn't take it anymore.
I can work remotely.
Yeah.
I can do all these things. So they were like, I'm going to buy now. The rentals, remember how crazy the rentals were? The last year and a half, we've seen a lot of that slow down, right? So
It's more leveling off.
yeah,
It feels like a slowdown, but it's still very active.
it's very active.
It's just less pressure on buyers, so they're naturally taking their time, which I believe they deserve.
The only concern I have, and it's not a huge concern, but it's a reality, is we've seen inventory go up dramatically in the last 3 to 4 months. Like in an unprecedented.
So I have a joke because, 2 years ago, if you had to book an inspector, they were booked out for 3 weeks. You couldn't even get an inspection. Now, if you need a photographer for your listing, they're booked out.
Yeah,
You can't get a photographer.
Exactly.
I think it has a lot to do with, we have a lot of agents here, obviously, and a lot of us work really hard to get listings, and we're constantly talking to people. And now you have all these agents getting all these listings that they were trying for in 21, 22, and their sellers are ready, and now we have too much property.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's not so much too much, but I do think what it does create is like traditional supply and demand effect. Like,
Yeah.
I think once you you have two types of sellers right now. You have the people that sort of need to sell for whatever reason. They want to go back up north. They need, for whatever. And then you have the sellers that want to like test the market and see if they can get it out. You also have like, this is probably the first season where we have seasonal rentals available.
Yeah.
Like you could still rent something in a lot of these communities, which we haven't seen in a while. So, and I don't say concern, but I do think you're going to see in a lot of these communities where the people that need to sell the prices will be pushed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they need to get under the other active. So, we use,
they need it.
There's an old saying, I'm not going to say I invented it, but I use it a lot. And it's, be the comp, don't be the victim of the comp. And I think that's a good lesson for sellers right now. Like this is not a market.
Someone's going to take that lower offer.
Somebody's going to take that lower offer. And once that lower offer is taken, you're the victim of the comp. Like so I think for our agents, we've been having a lot of discussions about like really setting better expectations with sellers and buyers, explaining. I think looking at days on the market, like if you're not getting activity or offers, you got to have a tough conversation with the seller. And unfortunately, like, do I think we're gonna crash or anything like that? No, I think there's a ton of equity in the markets. Almost everybody that's bought, short of maybe a couple people a year ago or whatever,
has equity,
right? So I think there's plenty of room. Foreclosures are still like less than 2%, so that's not an issue. It's just, I think as we return more to normal, I think people are like getting called back to work and they're like, maybe we bought too soon. Maybe we should, or, or the rents aren't there what they thought they were going to be. Like the Airbnb has slowed down a little bit. So, some of these
If they
numbers.
got so inflated with prices, it made more sense to go to a hotel.
Correct. And I think you look at certain pockets in Naples and you were like, almost everybody
Everybody loves Naples.
was buying these units thinking, oh, I can make $500 to $1,000 a night and the Airbnb. And I think,
Looking at the long game.
yeah, I think some of that has slowed down. And like, I think that to Lance's point, since about January 15th, I would say, second week in January, we've seen tremendous activity. Like the activity's back. It's still, I think, going to take longer because I think people do have more choices, like you said. So
Right.
it's that lack of urgency is not quite like
No, and I think
what it is.
though, and I've said this a million times. I guess when I started, all of my buyers had urgency because there
They
wasn't
were
anything on the
started.
market, and if you're financed, you were good
Oh
luck.
yeah.
And now it's like, no, you deserve to take your time if you can and shop around. Actually,
Yeah.
You can
I think
actually
you're-
have a second showing.
Yeah.
yeah, right, and you can actually, you don't have to see 5
You can
properties
tell what the
in one
market's
day.
like when the agents are bothering you for feedback.
Well, and I
Calling
think
you and
Right.
look, I think this is a market that a good agent loves because and I think it benefits, like most people come to Compass because they want to level up their business and really grow it. Like you're not coming here to be a part-time agent. Like you shouldn't come
No.
here to be a part-time agent. You should come here because you have a vision and
or a podcast.
and goals or a podcast. But what I would say is for a good agent, there was a time in 2021 and 2022 where it like listing presentations didn't matter. What you were doing for marketing didn't matter. Like all these agents were just throwing shit on the MLS and it was selling in a couple hours.
Right.
And it was like, it didn't like, there was nothing you could say to say like, list with me, I'm going to do a better job. Like nobody really cared besides maybe the fact that we were dealing with a lot of multiple offers and escalations and that a good agent that knew how to negotiate it was going to do better. But that was so far above most people's sort of like knowledge
Right.
that the buyers and sellers didn't even realize it at the time. So
They've never seen it before.
never, no,
Yeah.
in 20 years, I've never seen a mark, even in like 04, 05, because
During all the
back
Right.
then though, it was a lot more speculation
Yeah.
and like crazy financing. And like, it was more like you would run into somebody that worked at a bank or something. It was like, I want to buy 2 condos. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay. In 2021 and 2020, it was like, I just want something to stay in, live in.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of cash. Like we were hitting at 62 to 65% cash in all of Naples. I would say in our office in the mid 90s, probably. Like how many financing deals have you done in the last 2 years?
in the last 2 years,
Yeah, not many.
on a handful.
Yeah, but over the majority cash.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of the difference from like 0405 what we saw to like the last few years.
Which I think is going to change over time, and I'd like your opinion on that as well. I mean, for those who own a property in Naples who have owned it or inherited it, a lot of them feel stuck.
Yeah.
And for those moving, into Naples who might not have the cash, I think there's going to be a time where, I mean, is the cash going to run out? Like, or are people just going to move to Bonita?
I would say yes in a lot of areas. Naples is weird though. It's almost a little recession proof in the sense that where our buyers are coming from, New York, California, Boston, Chicago, the real estate's still more expensive.
Sure.
So a lot of those people are like selling their big houses up there and then coming down here and still find Naples extremely affordable.
Right.
Who it's really affected is the average person.
Who
Like-
keeps this town afloat?
Correct. Like I think we've seen that tenfold. I think it's getting better.
Yes.
But I
do too.
also I would tell you that what's hurt Naples restaurants is like a lot of people used to live in Fort Myers and come down to work in Naples at these restaurants. Fort Myers and like Estero has grown so much that they don't need to come to Naples.
Yeah.
They can work at a nice restaurant up there, make the same money and not have to travel.
Yeah.
So we are like having an issue like with service, I think, and finding, but I do think there's a bunch of like apartment communities opening, which we needed, which to us is affordable housing. And I think as the rental market comes down a little bit, it'll open back up. And we've also seen like a ton of new restaurants open, which like,
Agents can go back to bartending.
yeah, yeah, well, that's going to happen. I mean, look, it's,
Hey, if
No,
if that's what it is.
I look, as somebody that's been in the business for my whole, like pretty much my whole adult life, right? I don't even know if I'm an adult, but like
You
as,
heard it here first.
as much as I could be considered an adult, I love this industry. I love what I do. I've made a living for most of those years. There's a few I definitely didn't, but you know, it's like everybody thinks we make so much money and real estate's so overblown. And it's like, but if you really dive down and you look at the numbers of who's making money, it's actually pretty shocking. Like it's I there's like 9,000 MLS members at
At
Neighbor. Like maybe 2,100 have sold more than 3 properties.
Right.
So it's like everybody thinks that all these agents are getting rich, and look, some of them are doing very, very well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that do extremely well, but it's not the norm, right? The failure rate in our business is very high. It's extremely tough. You don't get paid unless you do a sale. Like, and I think that's what is so hard about this business. Like, you know, when we got into it at BX, we were a lead generation company with like a full service boutique, but we were sort of before Zillow and then, you know, before a lot of the big competitors. We did a lot of lead generation. It worked very well, but now everybody does it. Like it is almost impossible. And
Most the
most,
same leads getting regurgitated.
yeah, it's
Like, some people don't even know who they're calling. I posted about this the other day. You know, someone's scrolling Zillow.
right.
You know, be careful, because if you think you're calling the listing agent to get more info, number one, you're not most of the time. Number two, are you even calling an agent, or are you calling their assistant because they've paid for the lead? It's
Well,
just
yeah,
messy.
I had a drink with a friend. Well, actually, my wife's a girl that works with her, and they are sort of newer to Naples. And her boyfriend was like looking at a house, and he's like, and I talked to him last night, and I'm like, because he finally called me about it to ask me like some opinion. And it was like 1985, it was frame. I was like, no way. Like
Skip it.
when I called a friend of me and Lance's, Jamie, and I'm like, Jamie, like what do you think the insurance would be on this? And it was like it was a $500,000 house. It was like 10 grand a year. And I was like, look, and I told him, I'm like, you know, look, come to me. He's like, well, I didn't, and this is the same token. He's like, I didn't want to bother you.
Right.
I just wanted to go check it out. I clicked a button on Zillow. I'm like, like you can't do that. Like
Yeah.
I can't help you once you get, and I just don't think the consumer knows that. And I think that's a challenge, but
Yes, that's such a good point. And for anyone listening, if you have questions for us or for any of our guests, like reach out, because it's all those little questions that
Call
people.
your agent.
seriously. And I think that's like the biggest thing that people need to know. It's like, you're not bothering us. This is what we do.
Right.
This is our job. And it's like, we've all heard the story. Like, I was going to call you, but
It's
I didn't want to bother you. Or I didn't want to do this. And like, it puts us in a bad position. Right. And I don't even sell. I would have just passed it along, but, and so I think that's the point. And like, these are educated people, and they just, we forget that the normal person buys 1 or 2 houses in their lifetime,
Right.
maybe 3 or 4.
We don't, not down
We
here.
do it every day, right? Like, so for us, it's like the common practice. We know what we're doing.
Right. That like emotional intelligence side, I think agents sometimes miss that piece. It's like, okay, let's just relate to what this person's going through. I'm challenged with that when I have, you know, clients that have more money than I can wrap my head around.
Yeah.
And I have to like, okay, ask someone who has experience in that or whatever to try to, but it's the same way on the other end. It's like, we're problem solvers here, first and foremost.
Well, and it's like, you learn it early on. Like I made the mistake as an agent early. Like, you know, I was in my 20s and I'd walk into a house and be like, oh my God, that's hideous. And the people are like, oh, we like it. And I'm like, oh, well, there's that foot in my mouth, right? Like, I'm like, note to self, shut up. Nobody cares about your opinion. Just listen. And it's like the best advice I give agents is like, stop product dumping, stop trying to sell everything. Listen to what they want and try to meet their needs. And it's a process. And, I think, I think that's the thing. And I look, I think Lance does it really well. And the biggest compliment I can give to Lance is, and not just saying this, is I know so many people within the industry that have used Lance to sell a house, buy a house, represent family members, because even Steven, like, he's never going to get excited. He's always going to protect you. He keeps calm and he does a really good job. And like, is he the hardest working agent that I know?
He's the best co-host side.
Yeah.
Seriously, I think that's why we work so well, because you make me calm, comfortable.
But he's great. Keep it going.
But he takes care of people. I think he believes in work-life balance, which I think is super important. Like, he doesn't overly stress. Like,
I'm not burning out.
You're not competing it. Like,
not with that stress ball in your hand.
He's not consumed with what everybody else is doing. Like, he just wants to do his thing. But like, when you see people in the industry that could pick anyone to use and they pick him, like, that's the biggest testimonial you can get. So I think that's why he's had success. And
really glad we had Adam one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your phone's gonna ring off.
I gotta do Natalie next, right?
Yeah. No, it's nothing.
No, I think it's and look, to honestly, what you've accomplished.
No, we don't need it.
No, but in a short period of time.
I partnered with her.
Yeah, in a short period of time, the amount of collaboration, how you've impacted agents in our office, just from sharing your ideas and helping and doing videos and just working with people, has been like, you fit in from day one. And that's what we're looking for, is that collaboration and that just, like, I've been doing this for a long. I don't want drama. Like, I can't. I get enough of it. When you deal with a lot of agents, you get enough of it. What I would say is that most of it at this point is all solvable, right? Like, I've had the same questions over and over again. I think agents in general, I think it's a tough business to be in, because like, all of our agents are so professional and so well versed, but there are a lot of agents you'll do a deal with that unfortunately aren't. And so there are times when you end up doing both sides of the deal or have to carry extra weight, and it's just the reality of the business. Like,
you just don't know what you're going to get from the other agent. You're matching 4 different personalities: a buyer, a seller, and 2 agents.
And you can't depend
in the trust.
And you can't depend on, like, as an agent, like, your job is to protect your customer. You can't depend on that other, like, oh, that agent didn't do the paperwork, so I'm just going to let it fall back on him. Ultimately, it just affects your customer.
And at the end of the day, this is what we all need to remember in our area. We're transaction brokers.
Yeah.
We have to work together.
Yeah.
I would say the majority of agents that I've worked with in any of my transactions have been, Compass or not, have been pretty good. One day I want to do an episode where we just let it rip on some of these.
Yeah, you can't do that. I'll call you and be like, that's an ethics violation.
Don't look at any of the other content.
I will say the one thing that's really special about Naples, like, we have a lot of part-time agents, and that's frustrating. But I will say that most of the brokers in this town are really, like, we all communicate, we all talk. I can call almost every broker at any company, and they'll help me get something resolved. And I do think that's nice. Like,
that's because of the reputation you built up in this area.
Yeah.
That's a credit to you.
Well, but it's also them too. Like, they're open, they want to solve problems. Like, I do think I still think that's like old school community values that we have in Naples. Like, you don't see that. Like, it's much harder to get people on the phone on the East Coast sometimes and things like that. But
it drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love Naples for that.
Yeah, Naples is like...
Is it you who said it in your... Maybe, I think it was you. It's a big, small town. That big, small town feel.
I don't know. I think it's like...
It's not Adam.
No, I'm more like, it's like 1 degree of separation. Like, if you don't know somebody in Naples, well, especially Lance, he knows everybody. But I'm friends with 5,000 realtors on Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's,
And you know every single one by name.
I mean, I've tried to do a better job of managing my time and staying off social media. And I think I have. I'm probably a little bit more addicted to like stupid TikTok videos than,
Yeah, I gotta say, like you'll react to something that I post or that Lance and I post on this podcast like 5 days later.
yeah. I mean,
Posted that, and it's so funny, and it makes me think like he must be off his phone for a few days.
We have to be on TikTok for Adam to see it.
yeah. Yeah. Like,
Leave us a comment if you want to see us on
most
TikTok.
of the group chats I'm in will get random TikTok videos. But I feel like I think TikTok for me is like, it's almost like watching TV because I don't follow anyone. I just scroll through like random stuff. And it's like,
TikTok follows you though.
it does. Like, yeah, you stay on one TikTok too long, and the next thing you know, you're inundated with that subject.
TikTok too.
But it's just sometimes the social stuff, like on Facebook and Instagram, is very intense in this town. Like, it's like
We talked about Naples moms on one episode recently, and it's like
the best is Naples word of mouth restaurants. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's just pure comedy. Like,
Yeah, I don't even bother.
oh,
Don't even
it's
bother.
somebody will be, oh, I went to this place and they gave me the wrong napkin, and then it's 500 comments like, you're just a hater, and it's I don't know, it's scary. It's poison though, like definitely
oh
toxic.
yeah. No, we're only trying to provide some value and some entertainment here, and everybody loves Naples, and we're so happy you came on. I feel like we could talk forever,
I mean, we could because he's a wealth of knowledge, Adam, and his dad.
but we can't close this episode without mentioning in our questionnaire for this podcast. We send everybody a questionnaire,
Yeah.
and we put like, how do you identify as your like stereotype in Naples? And we have boater and golfer. And Adam wrote his own category because I did make a place for other.
Yeah.
And it was couch potato.
Yeah.
Couch with the potato emoji.
You're
I'd
so-
like to put that on the screen if possible,
Look,
Ryan.
He attempts to golf though.
Yeah, you do a lot of things, but we thought it was so funny. And then Lance was like, yeah, couch potato. Potato.
I mean, look, I do most of the stuff I do because
Laughed at that.
most of the stuff I do is because my wife makes me do it, and it's like work events for
And then
her.
you
God
call
bless
me and
her.
force me to meet you somewhere.
You never do though, so it's not even like
It's because he has other plans. This guy does more.
no. It's that he waits. He's a last minute planner.
I pick
Like,
and choose.
He's always waiting for that better thing to come along.
No, not
yeah.
necessarily a better thing.
I get it.
No, I talk so much during the day. Like once I get home, like if I go home, you're not really getting me back
Right.
out. Like if you want to have dinner, it's usually like right after work, or like if I can go from work and meet you somewhere, I'm good. Once I go
I'm the same way. When's your birthday?
May
May what?
11th, Taurus.
Everybody in the Naples office at least May 11th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned dinner though. So favorite spot to eat?
I mean,
You are definitely a foodie.
yeah, I mean, I've been pretty regular at Jimmy P's Steak Day for lunch on Thursdays for probably like 15
They
years.
do have a great special.
Wait, like this week?
It's every Thursday.
No, like, are you going?
If
standing table there
I have
on
a-
Thursdays.
it's a standing block on my calendar. Steak Thursday, 100%.
Dang. The original?
I
Down by
prefer
Chet?
to go to the original. I mean, sometimes because of time, I go to the one on Immokalee.
And now there's one in Bonita. Well, that's
I
I
eat at dinner. Obviously, I'm down here, so I don't go to lunch there. But I think that's the best deal in town. Like, if I'm going to steak, that's it. I like Nemo's for fish. I think that's the best fish restaurant in town. It can get a little loud. Larry's Lunchbox is probably the best deli.
Plugs in here.
Sponsored.
Cosmo-
by- I'm just kidding.
Lemoncello is my favorite Italian place. But we're gonna go there for dinner tonight.
Ah,
I like
We really
my
like
buddy
it too. I like their octopus.
Cosmo is the best. Everybody knows Cosmo too. He owns that place. He used to run Burn, and he's been friends with us for a long time. My son works there. He's a bartender.
so
So
At
he's
Burn?
bartending now?
yeah, well, he's a bar back, I guess.
Wait, at
but-
Burn or Limoncello?
Limoncello.
Okay, that's right by me.
It's
I gotta go
it's
see 'em.
like, to me, it's like it reminds me of going. It reminds me of how I grew up in an Italian family, going to like a little family-owned Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
Like it's not over, like it's very fairly priced. It's good food, family stuff,
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
White table.
friendly.
You feel like it's fancy, but then you sit down and it feels casual. It's the best.
My grandmother would roll over if I told her I was paying like $45 for pasta dish. Like she would kill me. So
Yeah.
I have a hard time. Or Lance's mom's chicken cutlets when she comes to town
Yes.
are money. Like
Okay.
you can't beat that.
Cue for
Lance.
Ryan and our editor. We have so many little clips on chicken cutlets and people mentioning them. Okay, so we gotta add that in.
I mean, whenever his mom's in town, we try to like we try to get her to make chicken cutlets. It's
Can't wait.
pretty amazing.
Well, I'm still waiting to try one.
Well, she'll be here in April, hopefully.
Oh, good.
He hides her though. He doesn't like people at his house. But I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I don't know. Like it's kind of nice. It's like our sanctuary.
Yeah, we do. So we're in houses, like different houses all day long. We finally get to our own. It's like nobody can come in here, please.
I think in our business, you're always on.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're
Even
off,
when
you want to be
Yeah.
off.
Try starting a podcast. I'm just
Well, now it's like you got recognized at the gym, right?
I did, yeah.
Somebody-
from Miami
Yeah.
came up to me and said, "Are you that guy from the Naples podcast?"
Does
Because
it
I'm
say
one of
anything about me?
yeah. No.
Okay, so then why Lance texts in our group and is like, Natalie, you're
Well, you weren't
coming to the
there,
gym
right?
with me. Like, doesn't know me. Anyway,
Well, they feel like they know you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's what happens in the podcast. You become a celebrity, you know, people.
No, we are friends with everyone, and everyone's welcome,
Yes.
and everybody loves.
Who's
Naples.
Who's your next guest?
I don't think we can reveal that.
Yeah, because we don't know our editing order, but some upcoming guests we have is Andrew Regengard. Am I saying that right?
From Real Producers.
From Real Producers.
We didn't see any of those badges in the last 2 weeks that they sent out. You probably should clip that, but on social media.
And then
It's literally all I saw for like 5 days was top 500, top 250, top this. But he's done a good job of branding. Like I can't.
He
you know,
really has.
It's pretty impressive.
why didn't I do this sooner with my feet up?
I don't know. Those are some funky boots.
Tom's makes boots now.
Tom's
Sponsored by Tom's footwear.
like, is that the shoes we used to wear when you were like little kids?
They didn't have Tom's when you were a little kid.
Oh,
Keds is what you're thinking of.
maybe, yeah. Stride right or something.
Close this out, Lance.
Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to Mr. Adam Vellano, the managing director.
We don't say goodbye when we're on the phone. We're just like, I got nothing.
Like,
I got
I got nothing.
So, on that note, thanks, Adam.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. We'll see
Talk to you
next
guys
time.
soon.